Hey everyone, it's Lori, and I am here with part 2 of my series on how to find good books for your kids. So, in the first part, I went through a whole bunch of books about books, which is one of my favorite ways of finding books. I might have a slight problem with that. But obviously, it is not an end all be all solution because there are always new books coming out, and it can be really hard to determine what might be a good fit or a bad fit for your kid. So I'm going to kind of break this up into two parts. The part where you're just generally looking for books for your kids, and the part where you have specific titles in mind. So if you are just generally looking for good books for your kids, I'd like to give a couple of suggestions. I mentioned Sarah Mackenzie's book, The Read Aloud Family, in the last video. And so this time I'd like to suggest her website. It's the Read Aloud Revival. I will link it below. She has all sorts of great resources there. She has a book list. You have to put in your email, which probably signs you up for her newsletter, but her newsletter is really good to get her list of recommended books. She also has a podcast where she talks about all things read aloud, so you can kind of scroll through there. I know she's done some different like great books for boys, etc. sort of podcasts, so you can listen to those there. She also has a premium membership site. I have never been a member of it. I'm sure it's fabulous. It's just not something I really need. I'm pretty good at finding books to begin with, so not really something that appeals to me, but if that's something that might help you, I would probably recommend giving it a try. I think it only opens up a couple of times a year, so you may have to wait until there's an opening or whatever in it. Also, for finding just general books for kids, I really like the Mensa book lists for kids. So I'm going to kind of show you what it looks like on the website here. They've got a really good set of reading lists, so if you have a child that needs some reading suggestions, these are great ones. So there's different grade levels. So I have printed out in a binder the grade 7 through 8 reading list and the grades 9 through 12. So let's take a look at the nonfiction reading list just for fun. So you can see here how they kind of set it up. On this one, it's for all ages. So you've got kindergarten through 3rd grade, some suggestions, 4th through 6th grade, some more suggestions, 7th through 8th, and 9th through 12th. So you can see that they have some really great books on here. I really enjoyed looking through this Lincoln, a photobiography. Of course, there's always Anne Frank. I've heard good things about the immortal life of Henrietta Lacks, but that's one I still need to read. So you can look at all these different lists. So we'll take a look at the 9 through 12 reading list as well. So obviously this one's a lot more extensive, and since it is 9 through 12, there's a whole bunch. And I think Mensa has a program where if you read all of the books on one of their lists, you can send in that you did so and get like a t-shirt or something, but it's not, I'm not the type of parent that really thinks that that's the best way to deal with reading. I just want to make sure my kids have lots of different suggestions. So this one, of course, is pretty high level because it is high school, but it's great for when the kids come to me and say, I don't know what to read, and we can kind of look through this as well. And I don't necessarily just use the levels that are meant for the grade levels my kids are in. Right now, Charlotte's in 8th grade and Eva is in 10th grade, but I would let them read from other grade levels as well. Besides Mensa, I do have another website that I do like to go to, and that is Plumbfield in Padilla. I'm going to show you a little bit about that site here. I know that these are references, at least one of them is a reference to Little Women. I feel like I should know for sure what the references are, but I don't. Sorry. Anyway, this site is put together by some very lovely ladies that I know from social media. I've been in some Facebook groups with them over the years, and they just do an awesome job of book reviews and kind of developing a list of good books so that your kids are ready for the great books. I do think these skew a little bit younger than what I need right now, so I don't use this site quite as much now. But as you can see, they have some book club guides available, which is really cool if you have a bunch of kids. Some pages about specific authors. So Jean Stratton Porter, Louisa May Alcott, Lucy Maud Montgomery, and Ralph Moody are all kind of older authors, and N.D. Wilson is a modern author. So if you want information on those authors, you can go there. There's also some small presses that they link to, but they have lots of book lists. So they've got a book club and reading buddy quick start, books for bed rest, books boys love, little girl life, American Literature Course Year 1, and Quest Adventure. So we'll take a look at books boys love, because not having boys, I don't have a lot of lists like this. So if you do have a boy, this might help. So of course they have some discussion of what they have picked out, but here are some of their suggestions: Little Britches, Incredible Journey, Henry and the Chalk Dragon, The Bark of the Bog Owl, A Tree for Peter, Good Old Archibald, Old Sam Dakota Trotter. So, it just goes through and gives a little description of the books so that you can get an idea of maybe whether these books might be good for your boy or your girl. I don't think the books boys love is something that should be exclusively used for boys. I think a lot of these books would be very enjoyed by girls as well. Obviously, another thing you can look at when trying to find books for your kids is you can just kind of check Pinterest or Google great books for kids or great books for boys ages 8 through 12 or whatever your specific situation is. That can be a good way. You just have to be sure to know what the source is and to check into books if they're coming from a source that you're unfamiliar with, because obviously you're going to take your own worldview and your own morality into account when picking out books for your kids. So obviously mine are kind of becoming a little bit from a Christian perspective, but I also very much am into classics, so therefore I kind of trust the Mensa list as well. But, you can always use Google as your friend. Just be sure to trust but verify. And then there's the other situation. So your kid comes to you, you're at the bookstore, you're at the library, they saw something on Goodreads, and they're like, hey mom, this book sounds really cool. Can I read it? Now, some parents very much pre-read everything their kids read. That's not something I've been able to do for years because Charlotte is such an obsessive reader that I can't keep up with her. So I like to use several different resources to figure things out. Of course, if you're in the library, the first thing to do is to read the back cover and read the blurbs. But then the next thing I like to do is I like to check the website Common Sense Media. So I'm going to show you how that works here. Here I just Googled some books released in October of 2019 in hopes that I could show you how this works. I just picked a couple that sounded like books my kids would like. So the first one I thought of Eva, and it's called War Girls. So we're just going to put that in their search bar. Now, Common Sense Media has movies, it has video games, it has apps, it has books, it has all sorts of things. So I'm going to click on books and see if we have anything. And it doesn't look like they happen to have this book. So I'm going to take a look at the other one and see if we can find anything about it. And this was one that sounded like something Charlotte would like. Tarnished Are the Stars. And then I'm going to filter again by books. It doesn't look like they're going to have either one of these. So I'll put in one that Charlotte and I have already read, that I know a little bit about, and see if they have it. It's been out a couple months now. House of Salt and Sorrows. Nope. And see, this is the problem that I find that I have with Common Sense Media a lot of the time, is that if something is very new, it's not available on here. And as much as they try, when you're trying to be kind of a database of movies, TV shows, books, apps, games, etc., it's just such a broad thing that it's very hard to deal with. So I'm going to go with an older book, Warcross. This is one that my girls did not like very much. So we got Warcross book 1. Finally found a book I can show you. So they give you a rating of what they think. So Common Sense Media says ages 13 plus. Parents say 14 plus, kids say 13 plus. This is based on reviews. And so there's a little bit of a book review, what parents need to know. But what I particularly appreciate about Common Sense Media is it allows you to decide what things are a problem for you. So it gives ratings to a bunch of different topics. So we've got educational value. So that'll pop up with, it explores how video games and social media might evolve in the near future. The novel deals with issues of privacy and surveillance. So they figure it's pretty good educational value for that. And then they have positive messages, pretty good. Keeping secrets from friends and family is dangerous and unproductive. Friends and teammates try to understand one another's needs and provide support in difficult times. So if there's something you're more worried about, so my kids are particularly sensitive, particularly Eva, to anything having to do with sex in books. She just does not really want to deal with it. So if I came in here and saw that there were 3 dots, it kind of looks like it gives some examples of exactly what's in there. But that would be a sign to me that it might not be a good book for Eva. Now, our family is not nearly as sensitive to language, so this will tell me what kind of language shows up in a book, or drinking, drugs, and smoking. So, but if those were big issues in your family, you would know how much of that happens in there. So you can kind of look at the categories that are most important to your family. So a lot of times when you check Common Sense Media, you just come up with nothing because unfortunately, because they're trying to do so much, they aren't able to list everything you may want. So what I do in those cases is I tend to go to Goodreads. Now with Goodreads, you can't just go as simply as like, oh, it has 3 stars or 4 stars, it must be fine. You have to kind of look through the reviews a little bit. So I'm going to kind of show you my process here. You kind of have to look through the reviews for kind of keywords. So we're going to go with War Girls. If I can type. Oh, it looks like it's going to be a series, so that's kind of nice to know. So we've got a description of the book. 2 sisters are torn apart by war and must fight their way back to each other in a futuristic Black Panther-inspired Nigeria. I didn't know it was Black Panther-inspired. Maybe it's not exactly what Eva would like. I thought it was going to be more realistic, but that's okay. So I can go down and look through the reviews. So what I try to look for is either both negative reviews and really super positive reviews. So, so here's one who says it bums her out when people gave up on it because they weren't familiar with the Nigerian Civil War. And honestly, I'm not familiar with that, so let's see if she says anything worth noting. So she suggests a Wikipedia article on the Nigerian Civil War. That's pretty handy. Okay. Okay, here's a lower review. Wanted to love it. So, things she loved. And then things she didn't like. The pacing, the jargon. Writing wasn't for her, didn't connect with the characters. Okay, so I'm kind of looking through, and so the things I look for are, the things I look for are kind of keywords that make me think that it might be good or not good for my kids. What I'm seeing here is this looks like it would probably be fine, because I didn't realize that it was Black Panther and sci-fi-ish inspired from the little blurb where I saw it. I actually think this might be a better choice for Charlotte anyway. So this doesn't look like it would be too much of an issue now. Obviously, it's about war, so there's probably going to be violence. So if violence is something you don't want your kids reading about, then you would want to do, you might come up with a different thought on this. But from what I've seen here, this is probably something that if my kids wanted to read, I would just research it a little bit more, read some other reviews. Tarnished Are the Stars. Let's look at the other one. Tarnished Are the Stars. So, The Lunar Chronicles meets Rook in this queer own voices sci-fi fantasy novel, perfect for fans of Marissa Meyer and Shannon Cameron. Okay, so for us, this queer hashtag own voices sci-fi fantasy novel is probably not something that my kids are going to enjoy. So we just don't have as much desire for queer-based books. I think that it's kind of overrepresented in books, and my kids have read plenty, but it's the sort of thing that probably isn't going to hit well with my kids. So the fact that it's a 2019 YA book with LGBT themes probably means that this one isn't going to be a good fit. So, now that's not saying that it wouldn't be right for another reader. It's just probably not something that I would encourage my kids to pick up. Now, would I ban them from reading it? Probably not. But just this much of a search at Goodreads lets me know that perhaps this book is not a book my kids would enjoy as much, and that War Girls perhaps would be one that Charlotte would enjoy that Eva might not enjoy as much. So those are some of the ways that I use technology to help me find books for my kids. I hope that this helps you some. Please let me know in the comments if you have other resources that you find to be very helpful for finding books for kids. I would love to hear more of those. And I will be doing a part 3 of this series where I'm going to talk about how to find affordable copies of children's books. If for those of us who, for whatever reason, don't have great library systems. I don't mean to insult our libraries. We have 2 very nice libraries that we go to, but we also live rurally, so they have a limited number of books. We're not somewhere where they can just like get it from a different branch all the time. We could interlibrary loan some, but that can be hard. So I'm going to go over some of my favorite resources for finding used books, cheap books, out of print books, that sort of thing. So look forward to that one. Feel free to subscribe if you like videos about reading, kids and reading. I do quite a bit of those, homeschooling, that sort of thing. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.